Good evening, boys and girls. Tonight I have something special set for you guys. We'll be doing Krompirusa. It's a vegetarian dish which has its roots in the Balkans. I've never seen it anywhere else in the world except Turkey and the Balkan states that I visited in the past. So, we'll need some dough. I don't know what's it called in English, but it's dough for pastries. It's a fresh one. I can also make one myself, but tonight I don't have time to it, so I will just make a separate video one day showing you guys how to do it. We need potatoes. The bigger, the less you will need to peel. It's just like ordinary cooking potato would do. You need some onions, 4 small ones or 1 big one. Some pepper, some salt, some olive oil, and preferably a sharp knife. This is a Japanese knife which my partner from Japan, business partner, brought to me a while back. And I just learned how to sharpen it thanks to my friend Luca from Sharp Edge. So let's peel the potatoes and get into action. Potatoes are peeled, onions are peeled, and I think that most of you guys know how to chop an onion, but just in case I can give you a few hints. A sharp knife really helps. So just cut it in half, hold it with 2 fingers on the side, and then just cut it on the long side, and then on the short side, and you get like small chunks which are like appropriate for any dish. I just like to cut it a bit more on the side, just to get the tiny ones and not the big chunks that will stuck in your mouth afterwards the dish is done. What you will need before you start, just in case, you will need 1 pan for the oven, and you will need like 1 pan for the stove, just to soften up the potatoes. It's a fairly simple dish that tastes really good, and it only takes about 50 minutes to make once you're skilled on how to do it. But if you want to do the dough also, it takes a little bit more time, but it's worth the while and the effort, because the homemade dough really tastes so much better. Pan is hot. Put some olive oil in it. With this dish, you just cannot go wrong. Like, all the quantities are irrelevant. The quantity of potato is irrelevant. You really can't go wrong. So I'm just putting some olive oil into the pan. Okay, let's fire this bad boy up. Add onions. Take a wooden spoon and mix gently. Just make sure that the fire is more or less small, that you won't burn it, because what we want to do is caramelize it and not burn it. So I'm taking off a little bit because it's too hot. What I like to use is just cast iron pan. It's better than all the Teflons and everything, because the weight really makes the difference. So if you have the possibility of a cast iron pan, it works perfectly. If you don't have it, just use a normal pan, it doesn't matter. What we'll do now is dice the potatoes. Leave the onions on the stove for like 5 minutes, just let it caramelize a bit. It's approximately 5 minutes later. The onions are getting crystallized. You could theoretically pour some water in and make it boil a bit more, but in my opinion, just doesn't make that difference. Now we'll add the potatoes, which I diced in the meanwhile. I'm always struggling with the quantity of the potatoes, but it's really not that important because you can make the Krompirusas thinner or thicker. So we'll just go what we have here, but I have a feeling that I could use another medium potato in there. What we should do now is take some more olive oil. You just cannot overdo it with the olive oil. In Bosnia region, they do it with a normal oil. It's just like frying oil, and it's not that good taste, and often it can happen that your stomach hurts afterwards. But with olive oil, it's just okay, and you really cannot do too much because it just it goes somewhere in the black hole or somewhere. I don't know where. It just evaporates. Usually when the dish is finished, I put a little bit more olive oil on it. So really don't hold back on it. Some pepper, some salt. You can do it like the salt big guy and mess up my kitchen. Okay. What I like to do next is just take 2 spoons and stir it up really good. So just put it a bit more heat. Just stir it up really good and leave it on the stove for, I think, like 5-ish or 10 minutes. Just to start baking a little bit. I know that it's done when it starts getting like a crystallized look to the potatoes. Then it's about done. So just in the meantime, you can mix it a little bit more, maybe add some salt or some pepper, but don't overdo it with salt because you can always add some later, but you cannot take it away while the dish is finished. What I'll do now is just set the oven to 200 degrees centigrade. I think it's 400 Fahrenheit, but just ask Google because we are doing the matrix here in Slovenia, where I'm from. And now we will prepare the dough and start rolling these suckers up. There is one really important step to be done. You don't want the Krompirusas to stick to your pan. So what I do is just take some olive oil, put it on the pan. I don't use like tin foil or baking paper. I just use some cloth and just spread it evenly along the pan. And I assure you that if the pan is covered in Teflon, it will not stick. It never sticks. But just if you won't put any olive oil on it, then it probably will stick. Okay, so the pan is ready. Let's take it away. We can still mix the potatoes a bit more. They are, let's say, 3 minutes from being ready to roll. I take the dough. I'll check what the English word for this dough is, and I'll just post it in the comments or in the description of the video. Unroll the dough. They're like sheets of dough, really thin. Okay, it's stirring up a little bit. But this is really not the best quality dough because it's not homemade. It's pre-purchased, and they tend to tear and fall apart. So let's give it another stir. Okay. We take a portion of the potatoes, spread it evenly along the short side of the dough. Maybe I'll just take a little more. I always struggle with the quantity of the potatoes. I had a phone call and the camera stopped working. So as I was saying, I'm always struggling with the actual quantity of the potato that I should put on the dough, but it just determines the thickness of the overall product. So just roll it up gently. Don't tighten it up too much, because if you do that, you'll end up tearing the dough. Okay. Now it's rolled. Put it on the pan. And we repeat the process as many times as required, or until we run out of the potatoes. I'm not really proud because either I made too much potato, or the dough was half empty like always. Usually what I get out of one package is like 2 more rolls. And as I said before, it's really common to see different quantities in the packages here. What we do now is pour some, yeah, I know, it looks too much, but it's not, believe me. Some more olive oil. I just take a hand and spread it evenly around all the pieces, so it will soak in the dough nicely. It smells so good that I just cannot wait to eat it. They should be all the same size, but don't worry about it. If they're different thickness, they will bake all the same, believe me. So just give my hands a wash. And what I like to do now is just take some pepper and some salt and put some more on the top. It really adds to the flavor. And remember that I put some oil on the top of the Krompirusas because I want to put some, it's a mixture of premium peppers. And the herbs, when you put them in the oven, you must always soak them with oil, otherwise they just don't give anything but the looks, or add anything but looks to the dish. So the spices must always be soaked a bit in olive oil. And it's also more convenient because when you put salt on them, it just sticks to the surface and doesn't fall down like if they're dry. The oven is heated. The beauties are here. I'll just put them in. Okay, let's say roughly the middle of the oven. And the program is on normal heating without ventilator. If you use ventilator, it will just dry it up too much. It's 200 degrees, and I'll set the timer to 45 minutes. Usually it takes a little bit more or a little bit less, just depends on the situation. Okay, 45. Oh, come on. 45-50, it's okay, we got a deal. And you just check on them every 10 to 15 minutes, and when they turn golden brown, they're ready to go. So see you guys in 45. Let's check it out. It's 5 minutes to go. They look nice and brownish, but I'll just leave them in there for like 5 more minutes. They're still like, they look a bit soft on the sides. 45 minutes passed. Let's see what we did. Okay, it's just right. Golden brown. And here's our Krompirusa. What you guys need to do now is just let it rest for a couple of minutes. If you can control yourself, I usually can, but just eat them hot. You can cover them with a cloth, but it will get more mushy if you like the mushy taste, but I like them more crunchy. So the crunchier the better for me. Let's just give it like 3 minutes to cool down a bit, and then we'll serve it up and eat it. Some time has passed. Let's take a knife. Let's take a fork and just cut into it. I usually cut it in half so I get 2 even pieces who fit nicely on the plate. Just look at this tenderness of the potato and the nice crunchy dough. It tastes heavenly. Bon appetit. You know, when I was talking to you guys about olive oil, it's maybe a bit dryish. So what I'll do now is I'll just take some olive oil and pour some on top. I won't pour some on top because I ran out of this one. I just okay. Just put some on top, and it will get sucked into the dough because when the dough is hot, it just absorbs olive oil. To be honest, I really don't know where all of this oil goes. I think it's a black hole in my oven or something. So let's get eating and see you guys next time. Thank you very much for tuning in.